Have you ever wondered why you can map out a perfect meal plan for the week, but then completely go off the rails in the checkout aisle at Target? Well, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to dive deep into the fascinating psychology of how your childhood money beliefs are actively shaping your wealth today as an adult. A lot of us just assume our financial habits start when our adult life kicks off, like when you land that first job or open a checking account. But the truth? It's way more interesting. The reality is, your financial foundation was poured long before you ever earned a single dime. Let's jump right into this little mystery. Why do two adults bringing home the exact same paycheck end up with totally different financial lives? Seriously, think about it. Why does one person save money without even breaking a sweat, while another gets full-on anxiety just swiping their debit card? Why do some folks feel incredibly guilty treating themselves to a coffee, while others max out credit cards without blinking? Well, the answer usually isn't hiding in a spreadsheet. Believe it or not, it was decided years before they ever got a salary. Which brings us to part one, the invisible money inheritance. To really crack this case, we've got to rewind the clock. We have to look at what we call the invisible money inheritance. Because kids, they are absolute sponges. They learn by watching. Picture this, a parent lecturing their kid over dinner about how every penny counts, right? But then, the very next afternoon, they lug home a massive brand-new flat-screen TV they bought on impulse. Kids pick up on that disconnect instantly. They learn way more from what they actually see than what they're told. So if a parent talks a big game about respecting money but then uses debt recklessly, well, the child figures out pretty quickly to trust the behavior, not the lecture. They notice the heavy sigh when the mail carrier drops off the bills. They see the instant dopamine rush of a shopping spree. They just soak up the entire emotional atmosphere of the house. And over time, those early, quiet observations actually morph into really powerful emotional beliefs. They become these invisible rules that secretly steer our adult financial choices. And we're not just talking about fleeting thoughts here. Your brain actually hardwires money directly to your survival instincts. If you grew up where money was tight and stressful, you might naturally develop an invisible rule like, I better spend this cash before I lose it, or money always just vanishes anyway. Now, you'd probably never say those things out loud at a dinner party, but because they are so deeply rooted in emotion, they dictate your choices before logic even enters the chat. Honestly, logic doesn't stand a chance. This just becomes your default operating system. So let's look at part two, scarcity, abundance, and shame. Let's explore how the extreme environments we grew up in are directly causing the financial reactions we have right now. These early impressions are literally the starting line for our adult money identities. And man, they create some massive blind spots. Take severe scarcity, for example. You might logically think, oh, growing up with nothing definitely makes someone a super disciplined saver. But actually, scratch that. Often, it triggers extreme overreactions. It's a psychological rebound. For some people, parting with $10 triggers a literal panic attack, so they become anxious hoarders. But for others, it's a total overcorrection. The second that direct deposit hits, they spend it immediately. Why? Because as a kid, buying something was the absolute only time they felt a tiny bit of control. Now, on the flip side of that coin, you've got unstructured abundance, where money was just always there, no boundaries, no questions asked. As adults, folks from that environment often massively underestimate costs and have zero restraint. And it's simply because they never had to build those financial muscles growing up. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. A bigger paycheck is not a magic wand. It won't fix your finances if you're secretly emotionally overcompensating for the deprivation you felt when you were 10 years old. Throwing more income at the problem doesn't cure it. It literally just funds a much bigger, more expensive version of your old destructive patterns. We also need to talk about the elephant in the room, shame. You've got to drop it. Money shame is this huge, heavy, hidden burden. Honestly, it's the exact reason you might leave that credit card statement sitting unopened on the kitchen counter for 2 weeks. Feeling embarrassed about these inherited money issues, like maybe your family really struggled, or maybe you were told that wanting money makes you greedy, it just blocks you from learning the skills you need to break the cycle. When you're drowning in shame, you treat your finances like some dark, dirty secret. But let's be real. Money is just a math skill. It's something you can learn, like driving a car. Kicking that shame to the curb is absolutely step one in healing your financial life.
Moving on to part 3, reading your money script.
Okay, let's fast forward to the present day. If awareness is where your power begins, and it absolutely is, how do you figure out exactly what script is running in your head right this second? Well, ask yourself this: how fast do you make financial decisions? I know it sounds like a weirdly simple question, but your decision speed is actually one of the absolute best litmus tests out there for uncovering your inherited money beliefs. Just think about the extreme differences in how we buy things. On one hand, you've got someone agonizing for 3 weeks over whether to buy a $30 blender. They are totally chained to the fear of making a mistake, completely paralyzed by uncertainty. Meanwhile, you've got someone else basically skateboarding through checkout, tapping their phone instantly, buying things on total impulse just to quiet their anxiety or score a quick dopamine hit. If you want to crack the code on what script is running your life, don't just look at what you're buying. Pay close attention to exactly how fast you decide to pull the trigger. Let's zoom out and look at the timeline of how this builds up. Say, back in 2006, you were a kid, just absorbing the money language and the emotional vibe at your house. By 2016, you step into adulthood and your brain just hits play, automatically repeating those inherited patterns. But fast forward to today, looking ahead to 2026, wow, awareness is more critical now than it has ever been in human history. Modern digital environments aren't just sitting there, they are actively hunting for your attention. Algorithms know exactly what your emotional weak spots are, and with completely frictionless one-click checkouts, your childhood impulses can drain your bank account before your adult, logical brain can even load up your banking app. The influence is just massive. Luckily, we arrive at part 4, rewriting your financial future. The really good news here: we can absolutely change this. So let's shift gears, look to the future, and figure out exactly how to rewrite your script so your habits actually help you instead of just repeating history. Listen, rewriting your money mindset isn't some woo-woo magical concept. It is incredibly practical. It's about building a literal brick and mortar wall of evidence that proves your old fears wrong. If your inner child believes money always vanishes into thin air, setting up an automatic transfer to savings every payday is hard proof that your money actually stays put. If you grew up constantly terrified of the next emergency, building a starter emergency fund gives you physical, undeniable proof of safety. You see, beliefs only really change when you hit them with repeated physical experiences that prove them wrong. So, if you're ready to break your family's generational money cycle, don't just sit there and ponder it. Literally, grab a pen. For step 1, write down the exact phrases you used to hear at the kitchen table growing up. For step 2, scan that list and circle the ones that make your chest feel tight or give you a spike of anxiety today. Step 3, intentionally write down new, upgraded rules right next to the old ones. And finally, step 4, practice that new behavior consistently. You've got to let your new actions forge your new beliefs. You really have to grab the steering wheel here. Take an old toxic belief like money always disappears and consciously throw it in the trash. Replace it with a totally empowered framework like money can be directed. You actively flip "I'm just bad with money" to "money is a skill I am actively learning." I know it sounds like just a tiny tweak in language, but trust me, over time, that simple shift fundamentally rewires how your brain processes every single financial choice you make. Ultimately, look, you cannot go back in time and erase the childhood you had, but you absolutely have the incredible power to upgrade it right now. You can ensure your daily actions actually match the life you're trying to build. Because if you say you want financial freedom, but you still act like money is this scary monster under the bed, you're always going to stay stuck. True wealth only really starts growing when your internal beliefs and your external behaviors finally start acting like they're on the same team. By shining a light on this stuff today, you've already started the hard work of rewriting your script. But bringing it out of the shadows does leave us with one more fascinating mystery to tackle in our next explainer. Think about this. Why is saving money so much harder for our brains than spending it? Like, why does the human brain constantly crave the instant dopamine hit of now, completely ignoring the security of later? Well, keep practicing your new money script this week, and we'll unpack that crazy biological mystery next time.